There is only one place on Earth that can build a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. Not one country, one place, a single shipyard, on a single riverbank, in a single city in Virginia. Newport News Shipbuilding. 550 acres of industrial land on the James River. 26,000 workers. And the sole facility in the United States, in the entire Western Hemisphere, capable of designing, constructing, and delivering the most complex machine ever built by human hands. Every Nimitz-class carrier was built here. Every Ford-class carrier is being built here. If this shipyard stopped working tomorrow, the United States Navy would lose its ability to produce its most important strategic asset. There is no backup. There is no alternative. There is only Newport News. And right now, it is running out of the one thing it cannot replace. An aircraft carrier is the most complex object ever constructed. Not one of the most complex, the most complex. More individual components than a space shuttle. More wiring than a skyscraper. More piping than a small city's water system. And all of it compressed into a hull that must survive combat, operate nuclear reactors, launch jets, and house 5,000 people for months at a time. Building one takes roughly 7 to 8 years from the moment steel is cut to the day the ship is delivered to the Navy. The cost exceeds $13 billion. The supply chain involves over 2,000 companies across the United States. And the workforce, the welders, electricians, pipe fitters, engineers, and technicians who assemble every component by hand, numbers in the tens of thousands. This is not a factory process. There is no assembly line. There is no robotic welding arm that can build a nuclear carrier. Every weld, every cable run, every pipe fitting is performed by a human being, often in spaces so tight that a person can barely turn around. The carrier is built by hands. And the story of how those hands turn raw steel into a warship is unlike anything else in modern industry. Newport News Shipbuilding was founded in 1886. For over a century, it has been the only facility in the United States capable of building nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. It is also one of only 2 shipyards in the country that can build nuclear-powered submarines. The shipyard spans 550 acres along the James River in Virginia. It operates Dry Dock 12, the largest construction dry dock in the Western Hemisphere. The dock measures 2,173 feet long and 250 feet wide. It is large enough to hold 2 Ford-class carriers simultaneously. And standing above it all is a crane that the workers call Big Blue. Big Blue is a gantry crane with a lifting capacity of 1,050 metric tons. It was built by the German company Krupp in 1976 and upgraded in 2008. It stands 233 feet tall, with a span of 540 feet between its legs. It has helped assemble every American aircraft carrier since the Theodore Roosevelt. 1,000 tons, lifted by a single crane, placed with precision measured in inches, on a structure that must eventually survive missile strikes and 100-foot waves. But the shipyard does not build carriers the way it built them 50 years ago. Modern carrier construction uses a method called modular assembly. Instead of building the ship from the keel up, piece by piece, inside the dry dock, the shipyard constructs massive pre-outfitted sections called superlifts in workshops and industrial areas throughout the 550-acre facility. Each superlift is a fully equipped section of the ship. The steel structure is welded, the piping is installed, the electrical cabling is run. The ventilation ducts are fitted, all before the section ever enters the dry dock. Think of it as a jigsaw puzzle, except each piece weighs hundreds or thousands of tons, and each piece must fit together with tolerances tight enough to maintain the structural integrity of a warship that will operate for 50 years. When a superlift is ready, Big Blue lifts it from the construction area, carries it across the shipyard, and lowers it into Dry Dock 12, where it is welded to the sections already in place. The process repeats, superlift by superlift, until the hull and superstructure are complete. But eventually, every piece is in place. The hull is complete, the systems are partially installed, And the ship that has been sitting on concrete blocks in a dry basin must, for the first time, do the thing it was designed to do. It must float. The float-out of an aircraft carrier is not a christening. It is not a ceremony. It is an engineering operation that takes over 10 hours and involves one of the most carefully controlled floods in the world. The process begins with the ship sitting on support blocks at the bottom of Dry Dock 12. Every system that could be damaged by water intrusion has been sealed or protected. Every opening in the hull that will eventually connect to the ship's seawater systems has been temporarily closed. Every watertight compartment has been verified. Then the dock gates are opened, and the James River begins to pour in. Over 100 million gallons of water flow into the dry dock in a process that is controlled, measured, and monitored at every stage. As the water level rises, inch by inch, hour by hour, the ship begins to lift off its support blocks. This is the moment of truth. 100,000 tons of steel, wiring, piping, and partially installed equipment resting on blocks for years during construction is now being asked to float. The hull has been tested. The welds have been inspected. The calculations have been verified 1,000 times. The float-out is not the end of construction. It is closer to the halfway point. The ship still needs its nuclear reactors fueled and tested, its catapults installed and calibrated, its combat systems integrated, its radar mounted, its weapons elevators completed. Hundreds of systems that could not be installed or tested while the ship sat in a dry dock must now be finished with the ship in the water. This fitting out phase can take years. Workers continue boarding the ship daily, climbing through spaces that are now fully enclosed, working in compartments that are dark, hot, and loud, with the sound of grinding and welding. And then comes the day the ship leaves the shipyard for the first time. Sea trials, the tests that determine whether every weld, every system, every calculation, actually works. Sea trials are not a test drive. They are a deliberate attempt to find everything that can fail. The ship puts to sea with a combined crew of Navy sailors and shipyard workers. The Navy is evaluating whether the ship meets its contract specifications. The shipyard is verifying that every system performs as designed, and both are looking for problems that only reveal themselves at sea. The first major test is the full power run. The ship's nuclear reactors drive the propulsion turbines to maximum output. 100,000 tons of steel accelerates through the open Atlantic, pushing past 30 knots. Faster than most people realize a ship this size can move. The hull vibrates, the wake stretches for miles, and every component in the propulsion chain is monitored for performance, temperature, and stress. Then comes the crash stop. At full speed, the engines are reversed. The entire propulsion system slams from full ahead to full astern. 100,000 tons of forward momentum must be absorbed, redirected, and brought to zero. The forces on the hull, the shafts, the bearings, and the rudders are extreme. If anything is going to break, this is when it breaks. The anchor drop test follows. 30-ton anchors are released from the bow, dragging hundreds of feet of heavy chain into the sea. The anchoring system must deploy and retrieve cleanly. A jammed anchor on a carrier is not a minor inconvenience. It is a safety crisis. For new carrier classes, there is an additional trial that goes beyond routine testing. Full ship shock trials. The Navy detonates explosive charges in the water near the hull to simulate the effects of a nearby underwater explosion. The ship shudders. Equipment rattles. And the engineers record what breaks, what shifts, and what survives. The Ford underwent shock trials in 2021. 40,000 pounds of explosives were detonated near the hull. The blast registered as a 3.9 magnitude earthquake on regional seismographs. The ship survived. The systems were evaluated, and the data collected from that single event informed the design of every Ford-class carrier that will follow. Sea trials are not about proving the ship is perfect. They are about discovering what is not, and fixing it before the ship goes to war. Here is what most people miss about aircraft carrier construction. The technology gets all the attention. EMALs, advanced weapons elevators, dual-band radar, nuclear reactors. The systems are impressive. They are expensive. They make headlines. But the technology is not the hardest thing to build. The hardest thing to build is the workforce. 26,000 people work at Newport News Shipbuilding. Many of them come from families where shipbuilding has been a trade for 3 and 4 generations. Their grandfathers welded the hulls of World War II carriers. Their parents built the Nimitz class. And now they are building the Ford class. That institutional knowledge, the understanding of how to weld reactor components, how to run cabling through spaces that no blueprint fully captures, how to fit pipe in a compartment so tight that you work by touch rather than by sight, is not taught in a classroom. It is passed from one generation to the next, on the job, inside the ship. And it is disappearing. Following the pandemic, the shipyard experienced a wave of retirements among its most experienced master tradespeople. The skills gap that resulted is real. Attrition rates in critical trades have at times exceeded 30%. Younger workers are entering the yard, but they lack the decades of accumulated expertise that their predecessors carried. The Navy can design a new carrier class. Congress can appropriate the budget. Engineers can draft the blueprints. But none of it matters if the people who know how to turn steel into a warship are gone. A 1,000-ton gantry crane can lift a superlift into a dry dock, but it cannot teach a 22-year-old apprentice how to weld a reactor compartment seal that will hold for 50 years. That knowledge lives in human hands, and when those hands retire, the knowledge goes with them. This is not a problem that money solves. It is a problem that only time, training, and institutional commitment can address, and it is happening now. While the shipyard is simultaneously building 2 Ford-class carriers, overhauling nuclear submarines, and trying to train a new generation fast enough to replace the one that is leaving. The answer, right now, is uncertain. The shipyard is hiring. It is training. It is investing in apprenticeship programs and workforce development initiatives. But the gap between a new hire and a master tradesperson is measured in years and decades, not months. Every aircraft carrier in the American fleet was built by hands at Newport News. Every reactor compartment was welded by a person. Every cable was run by a person. Every superlift was fitted by a person. The ship is technology, but the construction is craft. And craft takes a lifetime to master. If you think that story matters, consider subscribing. We cover not just the weapons the Navy deploys, but the people and the places that make them possible. Drop a comment and tell us, which detail surprised you most? The 100-million-gallon flood that launches a carrier? The 40,000-pound explosion that tested the Ford? The crane called Big Blue that has built every carrier since the Roosevelt? Or the fact that the most advanced warship on Earth is built almost entirely by hand? And a question for our next video. You have seen how a carrier is built. But there is a ship that never gets the attention, carries no aircraft, fires no weapons, and yet without it, no carrier battle group can operate for more than a few weeks. The supply ship, the invisible backbone of the fleet. That story is coming next.